Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world right now. I just want to thank you so much for being here today to talk with me about talking books with Tanisha. I'm Tanisha, and I'm so excited to welcome my friend and like a library extraordinaire, a person who definitely advocates for youth and representation in literacy and literature for our students, for our youth in the world. She's a school librarian, everybody. And that's like one of the best jobs to have right now when you're thinking about how you can get really great stories into the hands of our youth. And I just want to welcome Erin. So Erin, thank you so much for being here today.
So much for having me. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to speak with you specifically is because I know the work that you're doing right now around making sure that students have stories represent themselves. And I also know you're doing a lot of really great work in bringing in authors that also represent the students that are really trying to get these books, read. But also we know right now in our country that it's not necessarily something we can take for granted, that books are going to be available for students that show representation. So I'm excited to have conversations with you about the books that you're excited about today. So I have three questions I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you what you're excited about that you're reading right now and why that book. I'm going to ask you what your favorite part of the book is and why, and what do you hope readers will get from that? And I'm also going to ask like what you're looking forward to reading next. If you're like me, you probably have a stack of books that you're waiting to get to. And then anything else that you want to talk about today, like we're going to open up for you to have some time just to share with us. So what are you reading right now? What are you excited about right now?
Well, I recently read the book that's behind me on the screen, Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. And the reason I read this book is because it's being read by many of our seventh graders at the middle school that I work at. And also, I had the privilege of meeting Renee Watson at an author event in the fall with a fellow teacher of mine who teaches the book in her class. And so when we were meeting her in the fall, we were like, oh, it'd be so great to have you come to our school because the students are reading it. And so we tried to figure out a way to make it work, and it happened. And so she was coming to our school last week, and I wanted to read this book in advance. And I was just blown away by this book in so many ways, because realistic fiction is my favorite genre. I like books that make you feel. I want to, it's okay for me to cry when I'm reading a book, to feel empathy for somebody, to laugh, to learn something from somebody who's different than me. And so I felt like this book was so much of that and more. I didn't expect to get so much out of it personally either, because it was both a mirror and a window for me, because this book is about a girl named Jade who lives in North Portland, Oregon. And she's in high school, and she has a single mom and comes from a low-income family, but she goes to a private Catholic school on a scholarship. And that was my exact situation in high school too. So I related to Jade in that way, and also because I used to live down in the Portland area. And Renee Watson puts Portland almost like another character in the book. Like, she really describes it so beautifully. Her love for Portland is evident, and I could just reminisce about all these places I used to go to because I've lived outside of the area for 6 years now. And so in those ways, I was able to relate to Jade and what she was going through. But in other ways, I saw this intersection that she had in so many ways between race, class, gender, and body size. So I can kind of relate to two of those, with gender and class, when I was growing up, but not now. Now I'm in the middle class. And so, she describes things like going to school and having her stomach rumbling because there wasn't enough food in the house before she went to school. And I didn't have that experience, but I did, use food stamps when I was in high school. But I had another experience of going to school and being uncomfortable because I had teeth pain because my mom couldn't afford to take me to the dentist. So, just different ways. But then, she also describes how she befriends this friend, a white girl, who takes the city bus to school with her because they both live outside of the area and they're both there on scholarship. So they can, bond over their low income status at this like rich school where a lot of people are not, in their status. But then they have the difference of race, and in some ways her white friend can't understand what she's going through when she's racially profiled in a store and things like that. And so it just really made me think, and it made me think about how when I was in high school, I may have been that white friend to somebody that way because I was ignorant of so many things. Whereas if I read this book in 2017, when she mentions, because being in Portland, the Lewis and Clark expedition is huge there because, towards the end.
Yeah.
And she mentions York, the enslaved person. Clark was his slave owner, which so many people don't know that story. And he and Sacagawea were part of that expedition, and in some way had some power by helping them navigate and things like that, but also didn't have power because of who they were.
Yeah.
And so that metaphor that she kind of has also at the school that she's going to. And so I was thinking about in 2017, I wouldn't have known who York was, and I would have learned about him from this story. There's so many different things in this book like that just can teach you so many things. And I loved that about the book. And just also how she's a teenage girl in the book, and there's no love story. The love story herself, which I think is awesome. And she's just a brilliant scholar. She's fluent in Spanish. She has these aspirations of going to college and grad school and traveling the world, but she's limited by her intersections. Like, for example, her white friend who is in the same neighborhood is able to go to Costa Rica on a school trip, and she's chosen for that. But Jade is chosen for this mentorship program for struggling girls. And she feels like that's because she's Black and where she lives. And so, I just loved how much of a mirror and window it was for me. And I just think it's realistic fiction at its finest. I can see why it won these awards, why it was one of the best books of 2017. And I just think Renee Watson is a brilliant, brilliant author.
Wow, that's like an amazing review. I love that. Yeah. It's been a while since I've read that book, and you're making me want to go back and like reread it just so I can pay attention to all those details. So you said a lot of really great positive things that you enjoyed about this story. And I'm wondering, from all those things, like, was there a favorite piece that you want to talk about, and what you hope readers will get from that?
I just hope readers will see, all the different kinds of ways that a Black girl can be, just, I think this story is kind of a counter narrative and goes against stereotypes of who Black girls are in high school, and I could just see so many of our students just really relating to Jade in certain ways. And then also just, I loved how she came into her own by the end of the novel. She really, her personality, like another thing that I related to was in high school, I was very shy, didn't feel powerful enough to use my voice. He feels the same way. By the end of the novel, that changes, and she finds a way to use her voice and speak up for what she needs and wants, and kind of advocate for herself more. Like, I was kind of like, why don't you just advocate to go to Costa Rica? I wanted her to like really like advocate to do that, and she didn't. And so, but you could see she's like tentative. She's, a teenage girl, and she didn't have the confidence yet. So I just think, I hope young girls see themselves in her and see that they can have a voice and use it, because I didn't have that in high school, and I loved reading about it even as an adult.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Like, that sounds really powerful. And I think I'm hoping people who are listening will think about like that special, femme identifying person in your life that could really benefit from a story like this, and what it means like to be able to have your voice be empowered and to be used. What else? Like, what else is coming up? What else are you reading, or what's like in your next, like, your book you're looking forward to reading? Like, what else do you want to share with us?
Sure, yeah. So I just started reading this book called Undercover Latina
Ooh.
by Aya de Leon. And this one is a middle grade novel. It is a spy novel. She comes from a family of spies and works for what's known as the Factory, which is an international organization aimed at protecting people of color.
Hmm.
And her first solo mission is to go undercover to befriend the son of a dangerous white supremacist. So she has to like kind of keep her cover, try not to speak her home language of Spanish, try to pass as a white girl. Meanwhile, she's also a teenager, so she's like developing a crush on the guy's Latino friend. So it's like one of those fast-paced action adventure, but also has like social justice in it, which is the kind of book I love. So that's what I'm reading right now. I just started it. It's good so far. And apparently she writes other espionage and spy novels, but this is her first one for young readers.
Okay.
You young YA middle grade novel.
I'm so like I have to get that book like right now. It sounds so good. And
Okay,
my stack keeps like growing, so I'm trying not to buy books, but I can't help it. Like I have to get that book.
that's to be read list. Yeah.
um, I feel like I want to. I know we're at the end of our time, but I feel like I have to ask this question, and I think I have to ask it because I think as two educators who work with youth and are around youth a lot, and living in the spaces that we do and knowing what's happening in different parts of our country right now with like the banning of books and like the limitations about certain access to curriculum and like historical truths, what do you feel like? I want to ask two questions. Phil, first, like what do you feel your role is as a middle school librarian around these issues, around like the idea of like giving access to stories? And I also want to ask you around like what do you fear? Like what do you fear for our youth? So maybe
Yeah.
I'll ask those two questions.
I feel, yeah, it's a loaded question in a way because, um, you know, secondary librarians, middle and high school librarians, for one, are often on the chopping block when it comes to cuts in schools. And so I think about that and my job in the future and how tentative that is, or tenuous that is.
Mhm.
How important we are in schools, especially middle and high schools, where students are figuring out their identity kind of for the first time, figuring out who they are, who they want to be. And so having these kinds of books in the library that they can see themselves in is so huge and impactful.
Mhm.
And I also just think it's a really heavy responsibility to be a librarian and to make sure that that happens. And I'm privileged that I live in an area where we don't have a lot of challenges to books where I live.
Yeah.
Um, my heart just hurts for teachers and librarians in other areas of the country where they are being like, sometimes they're feeling like they're going to lose their job if
Yeah.
they books in the library that reflect any kind of hard history or um, that have anything to do with race or being queer and things like that. So it's a heavy responsibility and I take it very seriously. And I really hope this is like where things are getting worse before they get better and that things are going to change in this country because it's not okay right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you on that. I've been reading a lot of books intentionally around things like different various identities and really trying to normalize the idea that we can get these books into like the hands of everyone, but also if readership, increases and people just like consume these books, right? Like consume the books and share the books. And I've kind of gotten to the habit of like, I read a book because I really still like buying books. I appreciate the libraries and I appreciate, being able to do like audibles and everything, but I like having a book in my hand. And so I find a lot of power in like reading the book and then passing the book on to the next person and wanting them to pass it on to the next person. And so I'm hoping that we can like be as organized as people are around like getting books banned and other things banned, that we can be as organized around getting books into the hands of people and saying not okay. And I'm with you too, Erin. Like I hope that we are in the pace where we're going to get to the worst part before we completely blow this up and like make it the best it could possibly be, because our kids deserve that, and we all deserve that. um you are phenomenal, truly, like you really are. And I had a chance to come and listen to Renee Watson, so thank you for that invitation again, because I think I didn't know what to expect, and it was just such a powerful way hearing her talk about her story. But one of the things I think that we talk about when you talk about the idea of like librarians and like positions being at risk and everything is that you can have a book full of libraries. If you see, this is Erin's library, by the way, behind me. See how beautiful it is. You can have a whole space full of books, but there's no one there to talk about the importance of books in the hands of students and matching it up with the kids. Like they're just books, they're just pages, you know what I mean? it always takes a person to introduce another idea, another story. And I remember the librarians I had in my life who's like, let me walk you over to the section. You might like these books. And I found some amazing authors that way. So, and you've also been a person to like, what about this book? And you've also introduced me to some really amazing authors. So I just want to say thank you for taking time today. Everybody, this is a little bit of a longer interview, but it's an important interview. If you have a librarian in your life, in your school system, advocate for them. Like, make sure they know that they are valued. Make sure people understand the impact they have on kids. Make sure you're getting access. So, if you have opportunity to donate books or have, book drives that are driven, ask the librarian, what books do you need in your library? What are students looking for and asking for? You are amazing. And I appreciate everything you do every single day for the youth in your own life and for the youth in the life that are coming past you and around you, and the people who are watching this will be impacted as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm really honored to be here, and I've learned so much from you as a colleague, and I truly it's priceless what I've learned under your leadership. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's reciprocal. All right, everybody, if you like what you are hearing, please go ahead and push like. I want to get lots of people understanding what's happening around the importance of having books in your hands, having literature, but also the importance of literacy. Let's kind of get the literacy moving too. If we're fluent in our books, in our literacy patterns, more books come and more stories get written. So we need to have that. Subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends. We have lots of great episodes that are this season. I'm so excited about season 2. And Erin, thank you for being a guest on this show with me.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you.